So welcome back, guys. This is part 2. Oh, sorry. Right. So we're going to do these 2 leaves next. So we've got the Derwent watercolour pencils. We've got 51 and 50. And I'm really only just, because this is quite soddened now, if you can see it's really absorbed the water, it's quite wet. I'm actually just using this now. There's enough water on there, so you really don't want a lot to activate this colour. Just a barely damp brush. And you could do all the pales first if you want. You could go around going, well, yep, I want all the light ones like this. No more now. And then you can pick up a little bit of the dark. Now if you're going from light to dark, you don't have to clean your brush. You will get a nice transition from one to the other. But if you were going from dark to light, you need to clean your brush, otherwise you will lose the pale colour. So got that there, and these are bigger, so you could use a bigger brush. We'll see how we go with this one. In this particular set I normally have 3 of everything. Let me just have a look at this one. I like riggers because they stay damp and they push the colour away. Now this is a professional watercolour. You wouldn't use one of these in this book or any book apart from on watercolour paper, because it will just flood and go absolutely everywhere. So in this particular one, just looking for the my other one, and I've obviously put it somewhere. I haven't put it away. So this is this one is a Pro Art Series 103, and it's a rigger, and you can tell the difference. So it's the same make. It's rubbed off a bit now, but it's the same make, different colour, different size, and it's also a rigger. It's only slightly bigger, but oops, if I do that, actually, sorry, it's identical at that end. It's this that's different. So that's a rigger, and this is how I like to usually work, but I know everybody has trouble with riggers. So this is a bigger space. So what this is going to do is it's going to give me a lighter colour with a colour at the end. So if I start on this leaf at the top, it'll fill all of this leaf and get paler and paler and paler. Now obviously I want it the other way, so damp the brush, twist on a baby wipe, and this is when you want to just do one colour once. You don't have to do it multiple times. And you can do this with a rigger. So this is what I invented, watercolouring. One rigger once. So you have your colour, and you take your colour to a natural highlight, and then you don't have to do anything else with it. Oh, thank you, Mel, thank you. So what you can do is, I didn't really want to do it on here. I'll put another flower very quickly. On this one here, so what you can do is you take a darker colour and this is the rigger, this is watercolouring, and it gets paler and paler and paler. So you take it to nothing, and that's watercolouring. This is slightly different. This isn't working with a rigger, this is working with an ordinary brush but keeping it as dry as possible. So you can do it all at once and then it's done. That's the quickest leaf ever. Or you can do this way, where you work with a paper palette, and you can also do this with watercolours. But what you need to do is you need a small amount. You don't want a large amount. Now that was a lovely highlight, but it was in the wrong place, because I want this to go from dark to light. And I've wet that twice now, so I've got to leave that for a little bit. So again, we can put this in here. And I would like rid of that line, but I don't think I can get rid of the line. And eventually your baby wipe will get so wet. And I'm going to do this because we don't really want much of a highlight on this. We can get some quite nice effects with this. And this indigo now isn't an indigo, it's just a very, very dark green, because you've kind of mixed it over the top. So I'm not going to do any more there because that's enough now. It's had enough. I want to come back to it later. It hasn't gone through, and I have rubbed quite a lot, but this Johanna Basford paper is okay, but you can see there's a little, just the tiniest, you can just see there, there's a little kink in the paper, not much, and that means that's now had enough, it needs to dry. Oh, hi V, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Anybody else popping in? Thanks for stopping by, guys, on this Sunday. I'm going to start to stream on Saturdays and Sundays, I think, because we're not doing many model shows, although we're doing one next week. That should fine. And if the other video hadn't failed, this is video 601. So I've made 601 videos because the other one failed. So again, because this one's lower down, it obviously is not going to be as highlighted as this one, and then this one's going to even more darker. Sorry, even darker. My English is atrocious today. So you can either scratch the colour on, so that's one way of doing it. So I'll show you the next leaf. So what we can do now is mix them actually on the page. So we'll get that indigo blue. So we've got our three colours, and we've got indigo. I may not put bronze in it, we'll see. So the palest colour is 51. So I'm not going to put it near the end because I want that to be a highlight. So we've got 51. And I'm going to put a little bit of the indigo here. And then we take our brush, and we're not doing with riggers, we're just doing an ordinary small watercolour brush. This is size 2 of the Pro Art Series 101. So dunk the water, twist it to a baby wipe, and we're going to start here. And I just want a little bit of that, and then we can start mixing this in. Now sometimes you can go with a bigger brush because it's a bigger space, but remember we don't want a lot of water. So we've manipulated that. You might want to push that over there a little bit. Now that's had enough. You don't want any more water on it for at least a few hours, because you've kind of rubbed that. But as I say, this particular paper, this Johanna Basford Jungle Book, will take that. So again, here I'm putting the colour there. And again, another good way, you could do the whole book like this. You could just scratch all the colour in, and a little bit of that indigo into there, and a bit of indigo there, more there, more there. We've left the top because we want a highlight, and I think the highlight might go to there actually, because that is hanging over, and this one, I think there might be a bit of a highlight there as well. We just need to put a bit of this dark here. And actually you don't want to be pressing on too hard because you'll mark your page. So we can put the pencils away. So you could go through the whole page, even the whole book, scratching colour like this, leaving bits where you want a nice highlight and scratching the colour as you want. You could do the whole book, and then you could just take your water brush, or you could take a little brush and some water and a baby wipe, or a little pack of there's little packs of baby wipes, anything that's a small packet, because you need to keep it damp rather than taking a full pack of baby wipes. And when this is dried, because it's still kind of really sticky, I'm just going to put a couple of baby wipes in that. And again, I'm dragging the brush backwards, twisting to a point really slowly. Oh, I'm so pleased you like the Derwents. Yes, Visa, she's so happy with the watercolours. They are very understated, these Derwent watercolour pencils. Now this is the traditional set. This one is the one I've had for many years. But again, you can see how they melt together. They just melt into the most beautiful watercolour. And they are light fast. They are professional watercolours. And again, you can scratch the colour and make watercolours. And you can make this, it's dried now, has that. But just a spray will reconstitute it back into a watercolour. But you can put a little bit, you can just scrape some bits of the end of the pencil into a well, and you can make a wash. So you can do an entire watercolour, traditional watercolour, on watercolour paper with these pencils. They're not just a pencil. You can also scratch the colour, and as you can see, I can take that back and I'm mixing them on the paper. And you can only do this with a barely damp brush, because as we know, colour books do not like too much water. That's had enough now. I don't want to touch it again. I'm going to go to the next one. The trick is not to rub too much, and with these watercolour pencils you don't have to. So again, I want that nice highlight, and then I want to build in this dark, and then I'm going to mix the indigo, and this is going to give you that lovely dark to light. You need to be quite comfortable, so just take the edge, because we don't want too much, take it up there, and when you bring it back, now there's a bit of a ridge there, but leave that because we can do that later. We just want to mix all the colours together this time. The second time we go in there, when it's been able to dry out, because again it's the colour page, we will go back in here and we will add our shadows and a bit of detail and go back in later. So I've got a lovely highlight right on the end of that one. Take this back down. Don't worry about that ridge. We're just in one, getting all that indigo, all the pencil mixed together. And I'm going to leave it there because I want to play about with that next time. I'm going to take it back down here. So that's what we've got so far. And this is what you would do if you were doing a painting. If you're doing it in oils or anything, you get that first colour down and then you go back in later. Now we do have to let that dry. It is dry, but it must be damp. There's nothing on the back at all, absolutely nothing. But I know I've been rubbing a little bit, so I have to let that rest. And then if I do that, this page is just going to be absolutely gorgeous. Flat, and yet you can, I've been in that tree 3 times. I put colour on that tree 3 times. I put the shadow on here 3 times, but I've let it rest every time. I do something else, then I go back to it. So now I could go back to the flowers because it's quite warm in this room and they're under a lot of lights. Normally I would suggest, to be on the safe side, do the whole page and then go back to it. It's like the bluebells. I can go back into the bluebells. I don't think I want anything as dark as that one, but again, it depends how dramatic you want to be. So if I look at my little colour book, mouthful of tea, because the tea boy's home today, bless his socks. I don't really want Kingfisher blue. Prussian blue's quite nice, and it's quite cold. Spectrum blue is probably the next one. I've got Oriental, but I think Spectrum blue would be quite nice. And then we've got Cobalt blue. That's very cold. Smart blue is slightly purplier. This one's purplier. Well, we've got these two, so I think we need to go there or here. There's these two. Cobalt blue. I could try a bit of Cobalt blue, that might work. But again, once you've done a practice, this is only a practice. Once you've got used to your colours, and I haven't worked this way for quite a long time. I normally work with a rigger and do things once, but I wanted to have a real good place. So I'm just going to put this one. As you can see, it's just slightly darker. And I'm going to use my real fine liner. Now, I do have some smaller brushes. Sorry, my chair's got a wobble on, and I'm really late today. So, these are tiny brushes. But don't think you have to do a lot, buy expensive ones, because you don't. Just bear with me a second. These are what I use for oils and acrylic, or oils and water-based oils. And then there are some for highlights, so that's those. And then we have, I'm getting them all out to show you, so you might recognise some, instead of thinking, oh well, I can't do that because I can't find the brushes. And some of these are from really cheapy shops that we have. The handle's fallen off that one, so I can't tell you where it is. I think that may do. So you have to think, how tiny do you want to go? And I've just found that one, it shouldn't be out, that one. I found a Pro Art 4. So if you want to start doing this, oh my goodness, that is a diddy one. The finest stuff gone is a dog hair. I mean, they are extremely diddy. Oh, excuse me. So Sorry, I've rearranged my room, and I don't have enough room really to swing the chair around. So we've got some kind of diddy ones here. These are diddy. Oh, oh, excuse me. Hi Kingo, welcome to Money's Designs. Somebody else popping in. So these are quite diddy. Oh, excuse me. This is a series, and this has got 99p on it, and it's a fine sable Series 7 Winsor and Newton. And I've told you once before about this. They are not 99p. They are extremely expensive, but this one is... I can't see the number, but I left the sticker on because it was 99p. And I went to the desk and said, you know, you really don't want these at 99p. They are normally really expensive. And she wouldn't listen, so I bought it and said, okay, I'm buying it then. But I said it shouldn't be 99p. I think they're normally about £10–12, those little ones. They go up to about 30, I think. So this is a fine one. This, it says Scepter Gold, Sable Synthetic Winsor & Newton, and it's a 40. But it is a tiny, oops, a tiny, tiny, tiny. This is the one I'm working with, so you can see the difference. It's a diddy. I'm trying to find a pin. It would probably be a pin. Oh, let me find a pin. I can't find a pin. I wonder if I've got a staple in here. No, I haven't. I haven't got a staple in it. I don't normally use my staple guns. But trust me, it's tiny. It's tiny. If I can show you my fingernail. That's the brush. It's so diddy, and this is the one I'm using now. So it is very tiny. This one is a Daily Brownie D77, and it's a 50. And because it's a different make, it's bigger. I've used mine for oils, so they are a bit shot. You can get this little set, Expo Tools. They're little funny handled ones. They're tiny, they're for miniatures. The Cotman 430 Cotman, that's quite tiny. So if you want to get a couple of tiny brushes, it's always a good idea. These are always a couple of pounds, these are the Royal Soft Grip ones, and they're a bit longer, but mine's completely wrecked now because I use it for oils. But that's quite a nice one. But these are from Winsor, not Winsor Newton, what do we call that shop? There's a shop called The Works, and I think that's where I got this set from. This is number 1, and actually it's quite fine. When I put it next to the one I've just been using, it's quite a fine one. So it's quite nice to have a few fine brushes. Umbro do them because they use them for models. So you want to put the eyes on a model. I don't know what that one is. That says Pure Sable, AES, and that's quite a nice one. That's a 301, and that's quite a diddy one. If it says Pure Sable, I'm going to take them away because normally my daughters use this for all sorts. I don't normally have, and the one I've got there is a number 1, Pro Art 2. That's a Pro Art 4. So I'm going to look to see if I've got the set, because that will come in handy for bigger spaces. I kind of like that. So I'm going to put these just handy. So she. And I hope the light hasn't gone. So you can get Pro Art ones, do them. Some are sable and some are acrylic. That's a very tiny one, but it's a 5-0. It is a tiny one, that one. So it's a good idea to get a couple of little tiny brushes, even if it's to do the highlight in somebody's eye. Excuse me. So I'm just going to text hubby to ask him to put the light on for me. Bear with me a second. Not sure he'll get that, but he may do. So I've got one or two little brushes kicking about now, so I've kept, oops, I've got the 4 to go with the 2 now. Sometimes you do this before you get going. Then I've got my liner, which when it's dry it sprays out quite a bit, but when it's dried you can see now. So we've got 4, the Pro Art 4 and 2, my liner, and then I've got a couple of others which look a little bit thinner. So if you can see, if I can do this, so you can see what they're like and then you can read what they are. And they're all roughly the same size, but not at that end. So that's given me from the very fine, and this is the one that I've done all the work with here, but now I'm getting bigger, I need bigger spaces, so I found a number 4 to go with that number 2, and somewhere there'll be a 6. So they're the brushes that I'm going to be using for the rest of this page. Oh, hi Watercolor, everybody else popping in. Welcome to Bonnie's Designs. It's a live show recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I am putting the pencils back, but I'm labelling what I'm using. So these Derwent pencils, I need to keep putting them back in kind of order because they end up all over the floor. And I do like them in my Derwent art bag. Now I will be moving mine when I get another oops, sorry, I can't count. So the indigo goes up there. So the indigo I use all the time as the colour. I use it as a shadow colour for greens, and I use carmine, burnt carmine, for shadows if it's a red or a purple. And they're probably the 2 shadow colours that I use. I really like those 2. So I'm going to use the same, I'm going to go up a little bit. So again, you can scribble the colour in, or we can use it from a paper palette. I think what I was going to do is just go back with this darker colour, and I didn't label it, but I think it was, Prussian blue. Let me just have a look. No, Prussian blue's darker, so it wasn't Prussian blue. Bear with me. I think it was cobalt blue. Yeah, so it's cobalt blue, which is number 31. So I'm going to put 31 there, and the other one, just for reference, oops, I've broken that one. Just for reference, again, I've broken that, so that is going to go safe, and I can put that with a blob of water, and it'll be a pure colour. So I did with the shavings, I made a watercolour. I'm going to put that one in there. In fact, if I put some water to it, let's see what happens by the end. You see, it's going into a colour. So you can make it as a wash, or you can leave it in there and get a stronger colour. What was I doing? I forgot what I was doing. Oh, it was 35. Prussian blue, that one, 35. So I need to do this with my colours because I forget what I'm doing. So this little book, it's almost like the sea white, and it's almost the same as my little book of colours is made of. And it's allowing me to scribble colours, but it's also, I can do two things. If I did these again, stronger, there's colour on here. But it's also a reference, so I can write down here Johanna Basford Jungle Page, and I know that all these colours, if I go through this book and I think, oh look, I like those, I wonder what colour I used for the here. I've got a colour reference book, and this is what I was going to do last year, and I forgot all about it, because I will not remember the colours. I can get near and I can guess, and I do know that I use certain colours, but I wouldn't know exactly what I was doing. Oh bless. Oh my goodness, look at this. Oh, hot cup of coffee. Ooh. Oh my goodness, that's gorgeous. I love having hubby home when I'm streaming live. So it's also a reference, but the other thing you could do with it is you could make slightly bigger squares. Instead of putting all the colours in order like my little book, you could put the colours you wanted to use. So if you were going to use blues, you could put all your blues on a page. And then this is a paper palette to use for later. So very quickly, I'll just pan out and I'll show you my little book of colours. And then you've got an option to do one or two things. Just go very carefully that way. So what you can do is you can make, if you have the Derwent Ink 10s, Derwent Watercolor, Prismacolor, anything that's good quality, pastel or pencil, you can make colour squares. So of course I've got them in my little book. So I've got my Peerless, and I need some more. They're in my Amazon Gremlin box. Because they are gorgeous, but I want big squares. So I'm going to put the big squares in here, because I started with little squares originally, and I've decided that I take this quite a lot, so I'm going to use it with big squares. So I revamped it for the Neocolor 2s. I kept the original Gansai Tambi watercolours, and I kept the original Hydrus. I used that yesterday actually. There was tons of colour in it yesterday. I've made big squares of the Derwent watercolour pencils and the ink 10s, the Derwent ink 10s. So I thought I'd make some bigger squares. So you can scratch the colour, and I've labelled mine Derwent because I have so many colours in here. So I labelled this, and we have a friend. Come on then. He fell off this morning. Come on. Come on then. You're coming up. Bungle. Psst, psst, psst. Come on. I know you can leap up there. Come on. I don't want him to jump and frighten me to death. So you can make squares, put them in order. Like I've got all the yellows, I've got the warm yellow, and I've got all my oranges to my orangey reds. And then I've probably put an orange there. That's Scarlet Lake, but it's very orangey. I then got my pinks, from my flesh pink to my Crimson Lake, and then I have my what I call my reds. So I've got my colder reds, and I've put burnt carmine there as well. Then I've got my purples, so I've got my purples and my purple blues, and then I've got my cold blues. I've got the purple blues then kind of carried on into these colours I call kind of unnatural greens. I don't use them very often, but they are quite nice if you're doing a makeup colour. Olive greens and greys, and then have my cold browns, so the copper, the Van Dyke, the really colder ones, and my warm browns, so the siennas and the chocolates, and that's how I have them in colour. But there's no reason why you can't do two things. You can scratch colour in the books like we did before with the Neos. We've done it with the Inktense pencils, we've done it with the Neos, we've done it in the watercolour pencils, we've done it with, I can't think what else we've done it with. I'm sure we've done lots of other things. And then you can fill the whole book of colour, and later on you can come back and you can then manipulate it with a damp brush. Or you can make paper palettes like this. But the other thing you could do is this is your sketchbook. At the back of your sketchbook, you can scratch squares of colours that you think you might need. So that one's the chocolate. Now 3 layers is normally enough. And of course you've got to be careful you don't kind of press down too hard. So we've got these colours. Hello darling. We have a friend. This is our Bungles. So would you like to sit there, Bungle? You want to sit there, Bungle? I made that space for you this morning. Look here. You're going to sit there? You're a good boy. And my coffee. Never work with children and puppies. He's just sitting there. So I've rearranged my room, and we had to have a Bungle seat. Just push that very carefully back to give him a bit more room. Oops, oops, you've had some dinner, so you're big. Sit on your rug, darling. There you go, look. There you go, there's room for you there. You like to sit under there because it's under the lamps. I just don't have anywhere to put my coffee now. Are you going to sit there? Good boy. And poor Bungle, he went 2 weeks with his antibiotics, and he's now a snotty boy again. So I don't know what we're going to do with him. Are you? No, he's very pretty. He's turned round now. He's very pretty. Is that Bungle? But he's snotty. A snotty boy. Poor snotty boy. Sorry guys. You sit there then, be good boy. So we can scratch. Oopsie, paintbrushes are going. Oh, I forgot he has a fluffy tail. Oh, sorry guys. You just have to put them out of the way. Because he's just bad. So you can scratch colours. If you think you're going to do some sketches in greys, you can, and browns, just watercolour sketches, Or if you want to do just all browns, you could scratch all those gorgeous colours into squares. And then you could just use them, mix them together to make other colours. Remember, we don't have to have, you've got the carmine, but look at this purple. I've made this dark purple from, I think that was gunmetal grey. But isn't that a beautiful colour? And you can do your colour matching, so we can even put that grey with that brown and get a very dark cold brown. And then we can put the burnt carmine with the chocolate, and we can get kind of a reddy brown. Oh, it's a bit wet. It's fine. Look at these gorgeous, beautiful colours. And these are your own colours that you make up. It's your brush, your wetness, your amount of pigment that you're mixing together to get unusual colours. So although there's only 72, there's millions of colours you can, literally millions that you can use. So you can do it that way, or as we did with the Hannah Carlson book, scratch colour in, and then all you would need, you don't want any pencils, you don't want any other things with you, all you need is your damp brush or your water brush, a baby wipe and a little bit of water. So if you had a jam jar, you could put the water in the jam jar, and the lid you could put a baby wipe on. And then you would have your water for dunking and your baby wipe for twisting, just barely damp, and then that's just enough to activate colour. And that's all you would need. But I love working this way. It's so good. But you can only do it with really good quality pigments. Oh, we have a mascot, don't we, Bungle? Do we have a mascot, Bungle? Not for long. Not for long. So again, you can scratch the colours. Now you know you're working with these colours. If I like this lovely page, what I could think of, right, so all my flower colours that I know what I've used, I can scratch them on another page, and I can call it flower colours. And I know that these are the colours that I quite like for flowers. The same with leaves. I can scratch 3 colours together, and I know that those 3 colours are going to make a nice leaf. The same with the bluebells. I can match the purple and the turquoise green and the blue and scratch them together and write bluebell. So I know if I just take this little book with me, and if I have the square of colour, I can reactivate it as well. Just like my little books here. These squares don't have to be, and the same with the Neos and the ink tents. These colours can be either pushed together, so you've got 6 colours, you can match them together. And then remember the greens, you can change the colour of the greens by just adding blue or yellow without adding other greens. So every green you've got, you can add a blue to it, or you can have a yellow to it, and you'll have thousands of greens. And that's without mixing the blue and the greens, the blues and the yellows. So you really do have thousands and thousands of combinations. Or if you're not very well and you just want to kind of scratch a bit of colour, you can use them neat. But they're really, really fantastic, these Derwent watercolour pencils. I think you'll struggle in the US because you have to pay postage. And luckily in the UK we're not so bad because we have these. I've done the same with the Prisma. I'm not sure how good they are and if they are light fast, but these are professional, the original set and the new set. They're original. And they're professional watercolours, that's what I meant to say, but they do give a really, really lovely effect. But you've got to remember that all these would move because they are watercolour. But I like the fact you can have a lovely watercolour effect, and the page is absolutely perfect. And again, you're not working wet, because sometimes you don't want a big thing of water on your knee when you're on the sofa, because if you're anything like me, you'll spill it. So I worked out of there yesterday. And if I had the little jam pot, which I put somewhere, it's a miniature little jam pot. You've got the lid for your baby wipe, and then you've got the little jam jar, and all you want is to immerse it into water and then twist to a baby wipe. So I've spilt that 3 or 4 times recently, and it doesn't matter because it's about a teaspoon, about a tablespoon of water. Is that the little boy who's taking it all in? Aren't you, darling? I think that's why he's quiet. He still hasn't grown into his ears yet. And that's my, very quickly, that's my studio. I've put the big table up and I'm playing with there. And then behind me I have all the drawers. So the room's been completely cut in half now. So I have all my supplies that all want sorting. And then this way I've got the drawers until we get to here. And I've got a couple of lamps, but I have my babies in front of me. I have my my chameleon pens right in front of me, and then on this side next to them I have my pastel box with all my thousands of pastels in, because I wasn't using them because they were at the other side of the room. So I'm going to do a room tour when I get a little bit more energy to clean up a bit. Sorry, it was a bit disjointed. Because again, I want to play with these things and use them, but I can't get to them. And sorry about they're my war wounds. One of the dogs jumped up. She didn't bite, but she caught me with her. She's a lurcher, so she's very long-legged, and she caught me with her claws. So I look like I've been in the wars. But I think that's why Bungle's just quiet. He just sits all the time. That's a bunny shredding cardboard behind me. That's Big Mama. Oh, that's Big Mama Bunny, and she is just ripping a cardboard box to shreds. It's naughty. Oh, V, no. The reason I was doing this is I was deciding, do I like this? Because I love my water ones, because I think I might do the Derwent watercolour pencils, but I'm going to be naughty. I'm going to buy, I have to wait for next couple of weeks, but I'm going to buy the Ivy and the Inky book again, and I'm going to do one in watercolours, and I'm going to do the other one with my Derwent inks, because I wanted to do inks being an inky butterfly, because you can do this particular set of the Derwent graphics. Sorry, I've just rearranged my lamp and it's playing havoc with the camera. So these graphic liner pens, it says they've water-based pigment in them, but if they dry you can't reconstitute them. But you're supposed to use them on watercolour paper, and you wet the watercolour paper and you drop these in and they flood and they move about and they mix and they do wonderful things. So if you have a look on YouTube for the Derwent graphic liner pens, line painters pens, this is the 0.5, you can draw with them, you can draw beautiful lines with them, but I actually use them, and you can blow on the end and splatter, or you can throw them at the water, a wet watercolour paper, and you'll get all these gorgeous inky things going on and swirls, and then you can dry and go over them and they're opaque. Or you can do what I do, and when I get a blob, I don't like having a blob, I touch the end of the tip with a damp brush and I use them that way, and I get some quite nice effects. And I can't find the colour book that I used. I can't. Which book was it? I don't think it was this book. And I had a bit of a blobby moment, and instead of actually just wiping the paint pen with a damp baby wipe to clean up, I did a couple of monochromes. Oh, there we are. So what happened was the purple one, which is called Rain, it blobbed. So I had a lot of ink on the actual pen, and I had a blob. So I did a complete mono page, and I'm quite tempted to do that in the Inky Butterfly. So you have one colour and you just keep watering it down. I think the bunny's escaping. And you get some gorgeous, gorgeous monochrome effects. And I want to use them in the Inky Butterfly. Hence I've gone back to the Johanna one, because there are a few leaves that are very similar, because obviously they're her drawings. So this is why I'm having a practice. So I'm going to do two of these pages. This one I'm going to do in my original colours, and I had a look for another one, this one, and I'm going to use the modern Derwent watercolours. So if you buy Derwent watercolour pencils, the set now, you get the darker blue ones that are in the big case. I'm going to do that one in these. I don't think there's much of a difference. Mine are slightly waxy. The older ones have got a slightly different wood, and they're slightly waxier. But I have done a comparison before, and there's not much in it. But I just thought, for peace of mind, I would do this one in the other ones. In fact, I could possibly start that now, actually, because I've done a fair bit with the Derwent watercolour pencils. So I know that this is Derwent watercolour pencils because I'm going to put a note on, otherwise I'll forget. So I'm just going to put you see, this is how you control it. Derwent watercolour pencils. See if you can see, it's a bit wet. So that's how fine they are. They're a 0.5, very fine 9. Now they do them in a black and a sepia set and a grey set. I haven't played with those yet. I've bought them for my daughter. So I know that that's that one. It's dried now. And because that's dry now, it won't move. They are set once they are dry. But the idea is you use them while they're wet. So I should pop that into there. And I'll get my pencils out. So that's the end of part 2 of my Derwent watercolour pencils with a paper palette. Thank you for watching.